question time, and I'll go to Senator Birmingham.
Thanks, President. My question is to the Minister for Finance, Senator Gallagher. I refer the Minister to her statement to the Senate earlier today regarding knowledge of the sexual assault allegations made by Ms Brittany Higgins, in which the Minister stated that she, quote, was provided with information in the days before the allegations were first reported. Minister, when precisely did you first learn of any aspect of the allegations?
Thank you, Senator Birmingham. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you, President, and I thank Senator Birmingham for the question. I don't have the exact date, but I believe the details that were provided to me were in that week before, in the days before the shows or the Brittany Higgins allegations went public. So it's around that time.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Birmingham, first supplementary.
Thanks, President. Minister, for clarity, was the first knowledge you had of the allegations that engagement, as you've put it just now, in the days or in the weeks before the project aired the allegations?
Thank you, Senator Birmingham. Minister Gallagher.
The first I knew of the details of the allegations, from my best recollection, and I have gone back to try and find any information that would assist with being more precise. But from my best recollection, I became aware of the specific allegations as they related to a alleged rape in a minister's office in this building was in that week prior to those shows being published.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Birmingham, second supplementary.
Thanks, Minister. Thanks, President. Minister, you've referenced that you were aware or became aware of the details and the specific details in that week prior to airing of the project. When did you first learn of any aspect of the allegations, and by how and what means did you learn of that, undertake or come to have that first understanding of the allegations?
Thank you, Senator Birmingham. Minister Gallagher.
From my memory, it was around that same time. So I wasn't aware, for example, of other things that people knew in this place. I wasn't aware of any of that, and that people had known for some time. I had no knowledge of any of that, and I came into receiving some information through the partner of the young woman who was going to raise those allegations. It was put to me and asked of me to keep that information confidential, and I did.
Thank you, Minister. Before I go to Senator Grogan, I wish to draw to the attention of honourable senators the presence in the gallery of former Minister for Foreign Affairs Gareth Evans. On behalf of all senators, I wish you a warm welcome to Australia and in particular to the Senate. Thank you. Senator Grogan.
Thank you. My question is to the Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Wong. Under the Liberals and Nationals, there was a decade of neglect and mismanagement of our healthcare services. The Liberals and the Nationals deliberately ran down Medicare and general practice and made it harder and more expensive to see a doctor, particularly in outer suburbs and regional and rural communities. As a direct result, people were forced to present at emergency departments because they had no other alternatives. How is the government making it easier for Australians to see a doctor, and how are we taking pressure off our hospitals?
Thank you, Senator Grogan. Minister Wong.
Thank you, Senator Grogan, for the question. Thank you, President. If the Senate would indulge me also to acknowledge former Senator Evans here, an MP, a former Foreign Minister, and also has sat in this chair. So it's very good to see you here. Senator Grogan knows, as do all the senators on this side, that the Liberals and Nationals deliberately ran down Medicare for 9 long years. Under them, they made it harder for Australians to see a doctor. They left a legacy of declining bulk billing rates and doctor availability thanks to their mismanagement and freeze of the Medicare rebate. You see, unlike those opposite, those on this side believe that Australians deserve access to universal, world-class medical care, and we are working to deliver that. Our budget included over $6 billion to strengthen Medicare, with the centrepiece being a tripling of the bulk billing incentive. We're at the beating heart of Medicare. So a Labor government invests more in bulk billing, which we know is the heart of Medicare. This means a trip to the doctor is now cheaper for Australian families, with 5 million children under 16 benefiting. This will also help 7 million pensioners and concession card holders. This boost to the bulk billing incentive was the largest increase to the incentive in how long? In 40 years. In 40 years. In fact, this government is increasing Medicare rebates across the board by about $1.5 billion next year. So that next year we will deliver a bigger increase to Medicare rebates than those opposite delivered in their first 7 years in government. We're also growing the health workforce and supporting our trusted health workers to do what they're trained to do. And in the time remaining, I haven't even got to the making medicines cheaper aspect of the government's policy.
Thank you, Senator Wong. The time has expired. Senator Grogan, first supplementary.
Thank you very much, Minister Wong. I wonder if you can explain to us further how the bulk billing incentives that you've referenced in your previous answer and the changes to the Medicare benefit schedule are going to help GPs provide more bulk bill appointments to Australian families, and particularly those who are doing it tough.
Thank you, Senator Grogan. Minister Wong.
Thank you, Senator Grogan. And as I said, the government is tripling the bulk billing incentive for children, which helps all Australian families, and also for concession card holders and pensioners. All Australian families deserve to have the confidence that when a kid gets sick, they can go to a bulk billing doctor. Our measures will also help millions of pensioners, of self-funded retirees and concession card holders, taking the pressure off the cost of living. The College of General Practitioners described the budget as a game changer, particularly with regard to bulk billing for GP services. And after 9 years of cuts and the neglect of Medicare by those opposite, the reality is general practice in this country is in crisis. But we know there is only one party of government that will ever be committed to ensuring that Medicare is strengthened and protected, and it is the Labor Party. It is the Labor Party. One of the fundamental differences between the coalition, those opposite and this side of the chamber, is that for us, Medicare.
Senator Grogan, second supplementary.
Thank you. Minister, the ANEO report into community health and hospitals revealed more of the Morrison government's deliberate mismanagement of taxpayer money. What is the government doing to ensure that taxpayer money is invested in healthcare and is not wasted on further Liberal national rorts?
Thank you, Senator Grogan. Minister Wong.
Thank you. That is a very good question, Senator Grogan, and it's a reminder of just how many reports we've seen into the poor management of taxpayers' money by those opposite. And the National Audit Office report recently released into the Community Health and Hospitals program lays bare the rorts and mismanagement of the Morrison government, and it is scathing. $2 billion of taxpayer funding used as a slush fund by those opposite without regard for proper process or good governance. As the report makes clear, the former government announced so many projects without assessment or guidance, and at such speed, the department was forced to monitor the media to know which projects have been selected. Seriously. You ran it out so fast because under your government, announcement was actually the delivery, wasn't it? All you had to do was actually put out the press release. But you did it so fast that the department was forced to look to the media to understand what was occurring.
The time for answering has expired. Senator Cash.
My question is to the Minister for Finance, Senator Gallagher. Minister, on June 10, 2023, you said regarding Ms Higgins' sexual assault allegations that I wasn't aware of the full allegations. Prior to the 15th of February 2021, did you receive a copy of Ms Higgins' project interview, the transcript of that interview or any part of it? How did you receive it and from whom?
Order. Before I call the minister, I'm asking for order. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you, and I thank Senator Cash for the question, referencing back to, I think, statements I made in June 2023, and I stand by those statements. And in respect of her other questions, I refer to my statement, and I stand by that statement. And what you're asking me to do is to breach the confidence of a... Well,
order.
Let's be clear. Let's be clear about what you're asking me to do here.
Minister, please resume your seat. Order on my left. Order. Minister, please continue.
Thank you. What you're asking me to do here is to disclose information that was given to me and asked to be kept by me in confidence by an alleged, by a woman
Minister,
who was alleged to have been...
Minister. Senator Birmingham.
President, point of order on direct relevance. The question goes beyond the statement Senator Gallagher made today to a level of detail not contained in that statement. Further, given the mischaracterisation of the question being made by Senator Gallagher, it asks whether information that subsequently became public, i.e. the content of the project interview, was provided to her in advance. That is not confidential information. It was subsequently publicised.
Thank you, Senator Birmingham. The minister is being relevant, and I will continue to listen carefully to her responses. Minister, please continue.
Thank you. So just to finish that off, I was provided with information. I've made that clear in the days leading up to Ms Higgins' allegations becoming public, and I don't intend to disclose further interactions between any people that contact me and ask me to keep their confidence. I wouldn't ask the same of you, Senator Cash. I wouldn't ask you.
Minister, please resume your seat. Order. Order. Order on my left. Order. On both sides. Order. Senator Ayres. Senators, I should not have to ask this chamber over and over to come to order. Please continue, Minister.
Thank you. The information that was given to me, which...
the time for answering has expired. Senator Cash, first supplementary.
Thank you. Minister, you told the Senate earlier today that, and I quote, "I did nothing with that information, absolutely nothing." Yet it has been reported that you not only received an advanced transcript of the project interview, but that you had provided written feedback.
Order.
Minister, did you provide any feedback on that interview? If so, when and to whom and in what format?
I'm not going to call the minister until there is order. Senator Brown. Senator Brown. Minister.
Thank you. And again, my answer to these matters are going to be the same, which is when somebody comes to me and provides me with information that they want kept confidential, and it happens all the time in this job, I am there. And what we've seen in the last week with these messages being sprayed around TVs and newspapers and all the rest of it, the message it is sending out is that if you share information with anybody, if you confide in anybody, if you seek help from anybody, you will be subject to that information being sought and placed on the public record. I have acted appropriately at all times and with the with respect.
Minister, please resume your seat. Please resume your seat. Please resume your seat. Order. Senator Ruston. Minister, if you wish to continue, you have 10 seconds to do so. Senator Cash, second supplementary.
Thank you. Minister, prior to the 15th of February 2021, did you communicate any aspect of the allegations with any member of your staff, Senator Wong or her staff, or Mr Albanese or his staff?
Senator Watt. Minister Gallagher.
No.
Senator McKim.
Thank you very much, President. My question is to the Leader of Government Business representing the Prime Minister. Minister, last week the OECD published analysis of national accounts showing that in 2022 in Australia more than half of domestic inflation came from profits, and inflationary pressure from profits was more than twice as much as that from wages. The OECD's method and findings are consistent with those of the Australia Institute. Minister, does the government think the OECD's analysis is flawed, or will the government now finally accept that profits are the primary domestic driver of inflation in Australia?
Thank you, Senator McKim. Minister Wong.
Thank you, Senator McKim, and thank you for the question. And whilst I may not agree with the way the question is framed, at least we have a focus on one of the issues that Australians are so concerned about, and the government is so concerned about, which is inflation, and what is the best way in which to try and deal with a challenge which is a global challenge as well as a national and domestic challenge. And much of the last budget, as the Treasurer and the Finance Minister spoke of both in the lead up to the budget and budget measures, were focused on how it is that the government can, through its policies, neither fuel inflation nor simply go down a road which tells Australians they're on their own, which appears to be the path that the opposition wishes to take. We are not of that view. We have put in place a range of budget measures, some of which those opposite voted against, to ensure that there is cost of living relief for Australian families. I'd note that, of course, those opposite voted against the Energy Price Relief Plan, which will take 3/4 of a percentage point off inflation, according to both Treasury and the RBA Governor. So the Governor has made clear at Senate estimates his view about the relationship between the budget and inflation and the importance of reducing inflation. What I would also say to you, Senator McKim, I think what is helpful in this debate is to recognise that there are a range of factors which contribute to inflation, and the role that the government has to take is to steer a course through some pretty difficult economic challenges and to ensure that we provide cost of living relief to Australian families without adding to inflation.
Senator McKim, first supplementary.
Thank you. So there are indeed a range of factors driving inflation, but last week the European Central Bank echoed many others by saying that corporations with market power are using supply shocks as cover to increase their margins. What is the government doing to stop corporate profiteering? Why won't the government introduce a corporate super profits tax or monopoly-busting divestiture powers?
Thank you, Senator McKim. Senator Wong.
Thank you. Well, first, the economic proposition that well-functioning markets will ensure that you get efficient prices is the correct one, and the senator is right that it would be inappropriate for any corporation, any firm, to be utilising current supply constraints to profiteer. And that would be inconsistent, I think, with the expectations of the Australian people, and it would also be an economically unreasonable thing to do in terms of the broader economy. I'd make the point, though, that the policy proposition that the Greens go to respond to that is obviously not the policy proposition that a Labor government would go to. What we would say is that we welcome good profit growth if it is when it is accompanied by strong investment, competitive markets and a fair return for workers. We would hope that Australia's existing regulation...
The time for answering has expired. Senator McKim, second supplementary.
Thank you, President. Minister, last week the RBA raised interest rates for the 12th time in just over a year. Why won't the Treasurer act to freeze rents and use the existing powers in the RBA Act to step in and stop the RBA raising rates. How is the RBA smashing mortgage holders and renters for a problem that they didn't cause fair or good for the country?
Thank you, Senator McKim. Minister.
I'd make a few points. The first is we understand how tough these interest rate increases are for Australian families. Be very clear about that, and those on this side of the chamber and the government have made cost of living a priority in the budget and in the measures in which we are investing and applying taxpayer funds to try and work with and assist Australian families who are struggling with cost of living increases. I again make the point those opposite voted against the Energy Relief Plan, which is obviously a key factor in terms of inflation and price increases. In terms of the broader question, obviously monetary policy is run independently. That is the position the government takes, and governments of both persuasions
Thank you, Minister.
have taken.
The time for answering has expired. Senator Marielle Smith.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Housing and Homelessness, Senator Farrell. Having a safe and affordable place to call home is critical for all Australians. But after a decade of policy delay and failure by the former coalition government, we've seen increasing homelessness and home ownership out of reach for so many people around our country. Can the Minister explain how the Albanese government is addressing housing challenges for Australians through its ambitious housing reform agenda, and what obstacles may be blocking its path?
Thank you, Senator Smith. Minister.
Thank you, President. And can I thank Senator Smith for her question, and I know she's deeply concerned about the issue of homelessness in her home state of South Australia. The Albanese government wants every Australian to have the security of having a roof over their head. We're elected with a real plan to help tackle the country's housing challenges. Fundamental to our plan is, well, if you listen, I'll tell you, fundamental to our plan is increasing the supply of new housing. The Housing Australia Future Fund will be the largest boost to social and affordable rental in a decade. I'll repeat that for you, Senator. Our fund, the Future Fund, will be the largest boost to social and affordable rental homes in a decade. A guaranteed ongoing pipeline of funding for social and affordable rental homes. The 30,000 homes the fund will deliver in its first 5 years are one part of the Albanese government's ambitious housing agenda. It's astounding to me that there are those opposite who are all too happy to acknowledge the problem but then block the solutions, blocking homes for people in need right across the country, blocking the solution that is supported by the homeless sector, the housing sector and every state and housing minister in the country. I think most Australians would be appalled that there are people in this place prepared to vote no to more social and affordable rental housing. The Albanese government's ambitious housing reform agenda will deliver the housing Australia needs, and we call on those opposite, that's all of you, to put aside the grandstanding and support the Housing Australia Future Fund.
Thank you, Minister Farrell. Senator Smith, first supplementary.
Thank you, Minister. Can you update the Senate, please, on how the Albanese government's ambitious housing reform agenda is delivering new social and affordable rental homes now for Australians who need them?
Thank you, Senator Smith. Minister Farrell.
Thank you, President, and thank Senator Smith for her first supplementary. And yes, I can, Senator Smith. The Albanese government hit the ground running and is already delivering on our housing commitments. The Minister for Housing, who's doing a terrific job, has announced and visited many of the new developments and homes our reforms are delivering. Projects delivering new affordable rental homes in places which include Westmead, Adelaide, North West Tasmania, Balaclava, Brisbane, to name just a few, and they're just the start. In addition to these early measures, the Housing Australia Future Fund will deliver 30,000 new social and affordable rental homes in the fund's first 5 years and set a guaranteed ongoing pipeline of funding for social and affordable rental homes into the future.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Farrell, second supplement. Senator Smith, second supplementary.
Thank you, President. Can the Minister please provide an update on how the Albanese government's housing reform agenda is making a real difference to housing and homelessness services on the front line? And tell us, Minister, what support has the government's reform agenda received to date?
Minister Farrell.
Thank you, President, and thank you, Senator Smith, for your second supplementary question. And yes, I can answer those questions. The National Housing and Homelessness Agreement sends approximately $1.7 billion each year to the states for housing and homelessness. The Albanese government has offered a $67.5 million funding boost to assist the state's delivery of the homeless services for the coming year. The homeless sector is also eagerly awaiting the passage of the Housing Australia Future Fund. In its first 5 years, the return will fund $100 million for crisis and traditional housing for women and children, $30 million to build housing and services for veterans. Emma, the national shelter, said, "Time is of the essence. This is a national crisis. Action cannot be deferred."
Thank you, Minister. The time for answering has expired. Senator David Pocock.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Infrastructure, Senator Watt, with the Infrastructure Minister. Since 2016, the previous federal government invested more than $9.3 billion in 12 city and regional deals in every state and territory, except the ACT. This investment has leveraged more than $18 billion of investment in total and led to some big new pieces of social infrastructure. Apart from a welcome commitment to our national cultural institutions, what plan does the current government have to correct this historic inequality and co-invest in upgrading key ageing infrastructure in the national capital and Australia's fastest growing capital city?
Thank you, Senator Pocock. Minister Watt.
Thank you, President, and thank you, Senator Pocock, for your question. I'll get some information for you specifically about regional plans, but what I do know is that the Albanese government is making some very strong investments in infrastructure in the ACT, which is no surprise given that the Finance Minister, one of our strongest ministers in this chamber and in this parliament, is a strong representative of the ACT. I'm aware, for instance, that the government is investing in everything from road projects through the Roads to Recovery program, black spots programs, bridges renewals and heavy vehicle safety and productivity programs. In fact, the Infrastructure Investment Program provides $92.6 million over 10 years from 23-24 for those smaller projects. In the recent budget, we actually committed $476.4 million towards major infrastructure projects in the ACT, and they didn't include any colour-coded spreadsheets as far as I'm aware. That sort of thing stopped on the 21st of May. What is it about colour-coded spreadsheets that fires you people up? What is it? Is it the yellow colour code or the green colour code or the blue colour code? The red colour. There weren't many red colour codes on your spreadsheet, were there? It was mostly blue and green.
Senator Watt, please resume your seat. Order on my left. Order. I'm waiting, Senator Rennick. Order. Senator Watt.
Thank you, President. I'll refrain from mentioning colour-coded spreadsheets because we wouldn't want to have the information delayed, and I know Senator Pocock is serious about getting information. I'm also aware, though, that the Finance Minister, Senator Gallagher, is in discussions with the Chief Minister of the ACT about more projects, priority projects to be funded in the ACT, and I'm sure we'll have some good news on those before long.
Thank you, Senator Watt. Senator Pocock, first supplementary.
Thank you, President. The $150 million announced in the budget for a new urban precincts and partnership program is less than 9 of the 12 individual city partnerships. Will the government make more funding available to give people in the ACT the same access to the nation-building infrastructure other jurisdictions have enjoyed?
Thank you, Senator Pocock. Minister Watt.
Thank you, Senator Pocock. Well, as I say, I think that the facts stand that the Albanese government is committing a significant amount of funding to the ACT. We don't discriminate against the ACT. It's obviously one of the smaller jurisdictions, but that's a very significant commitment of funding for the ACT. And as I say, the Finance Minister is undertaking further discussions with the Chief Minister of the ACT about further investment. In addition, I'm aware that the government has made a very significant commitment, I think in the order of $2 billion, for a national security precinct that will occur, will be invested in the ACT and based in the ACT. So whether we're talking about roads, bridges, national security infrastructure and others, the record stands that this government is backing the ACT, as I say, led very ably by Senator Gallagher as the Finance Minister of this government.
Thank you, Senator Watt. Senator Pocock, second supplementary.
We saw in Labor's first full budget $240 million for a third stadium in Tasmania, $2.5 billion for the Brisbane Arena, as just two examples. Outside of the National Security Precinct and the cultural institutions, why is Labor continuing the previous government's approach of treating Canberrans as second-class citizens?
Minister Watt.
Thank you, Senator Pocock, and thank you for reminding me. Thank you for reminding me that in addition to the investments that I've already mentioned, we're also making an investment of around $500 million in some of the nation's cultural institutions. Senator Pocock, you struck me as a very cultured individual. I thought you'd be interested in investments in cultural institutions, and I'm sure that we'll see you down there at the National Gallery before too long. I'm sure that in the discussions that Senator Gallagher is having with the Chief Minister of the ACT, a range of other investments will be discussed. Senator Pocock, I'm not sure whether you're flagging an intention to return to the playing field if there were to be some sort of redevelopment of sporting facilities here in the ACT. We've certainly welcomed your appearance as a member of the Queensland State of Origin team in the annual State of Origin touch match, and we look forward to seeing you down there to prevail over New South Wales again next week. But we're making very significant investments in infrastructure in the ACT, and we'll continue to do so.
Thank you, Senator Watt. Senator Ruston.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister for Finance, Senator Gallagher. Did you receive a copy of the project interview transcript prior to it going to air on the 15th of February 2021?
Order. 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 I'm not calling the minister until there's order. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you, and I thank Senator Ruston for the question, and I refer her back to my statement where I have made it clear that I received information in several days before the first public reports went to air. I did nothing with that information, absolutely nothing. I was asked to keep it to myself, and I did, and I'm not going to stand here and go through private conversations, private conversations that I had with a person who was at the centre of a very, very difficult time in her life. A person who has had her privacy breached in the most egregious way over the last 2 years. There is essentially two things that have been alleged of me over the past week. That is that I misled the Senate. I dealt with that in my statement today. And Senator Reynolds and Senator Ruston were in the room when I explained that, and they accepted that 2 years ago, and not once have either of them raised any concern about that with me. So that's the first issue. The second issue that has been running in the media has been around my role in the compensation claim, an issue that has been incorrectly reported. These are the two issues that I have been hounded on.
Minister, please resume your seat. Order on my left. Senator Ruston, were you on your feet for a point of order?
Yeah, so just a point of order on relevance. I asked a very, very simple question. The minister has not answered my question in any way. I'd ask you in the last 11 seconds that she may answer it.
I believe that the minister is being relevant, Senator Ruston, to your question. Order. Order. Minister, please continue.
Thank you. And I think I've made it clear I am not going to breach that person's privacy any more than it has already been breached. I don't think it's safe, I don't think it's fair, and I don't think it's relevant.
Has expired. Senator Ruston, first supplementary.
Thank you, President. In relation to the information that you won't tell us that what you actually received, you did refer in your response this morning that I did nothing with that information, absolutely nothing. For absolute clarity, can you please tell us what absolutely nothing actually means?
Order. Order. Senator Bilyk. I haven't called you, Minister. I'm asking for order on my right. Minister.
Thank you. I think the problem the opposition are having here is that someone might actually act with some decency and integrity in this situation. I think that is the problem.
Order, Minister. Please resume your seat. Order. Order. On both sides. Minister, please continue.
That someone would act in accordance with the request that had been made of them. That's what I did. That's exactly what I did. I can't be clearer. And on the interjection I heard about Senator Reynolds, when Senator Reynolds sought our help, we provided that to her.
Order. Minister Gallagher, please resume your seat.
That is
Minister. Order. Order. These are very difficult questions and answers, and I am asking you all, Senator Rennick, I am asking you all to listen with respectful silence. That goes right across this chamber. Do not call out. Minister, please continue.
I've answered the question.
Senator Ruston, second supplementary.
Minister, at any point prior to the 15th of February 2021, did you advise or encourage any person to refer serious allegations to the police? If so, when and in what format did the minister provide that advice? And if not, why not?
Order. Order. I have not called the minister. On both sides. Senator Watt. Senator Henderson. Senator Henderson. Senator Hughes, I'm going to ask you to withdraw that.
Withdraw.
And I want order on both sides of the chamber. Senator Ruston is entitled to ask her question in silence, and the minister is entitled to respond in silence. Minister.
Could Senator Reynolds repeat the? Senator Ruston repeat the question.
Senator Ruston, and when Senator Ruston is invited to repeat the question, I expect it to be repeated in silence. Senator Ruston.
Minister, at any point prior to the 15th of February 2021, did you advise or encourage any person to refer the serious allegations to the police? If so, when did you do that and in what format? And if not, why not?
Order. I have not called the minister. Senator Polley, were you not listening when I asked for respectful silence? Minister Gallagher.
Thank you, President. Well, I'm not going to, again, breach the confidence of the discussions I had with individuals that had come to me seeking my confidence. But I can guarantee you, as I have done in absolutely every case of a woman coming to me and saying that they had been sexually assaulted or harassed or subject to violence, as often happens in this country, more than we would like, I have ensured that they are aware of the options available for them to make their decisions on. And this has been central to Ms Higgins' case, is a young woman who made a decision to tell her story on her own terms, in her own time.
Thank you, Minister. The time for answering has expired. Senator Lambie.
Thank you, Madam President. My question is for the Minister representing the Attorney-General.
After 4 years and with well-resourced staff and access, Major General Brereton found that a number of issues and rumours of war crimes emerged in Special Operations Command after Operation Slipper concluded in 2014. Consistent media reporting and evidence before a defamation trial show that such rumours were prevalent in Special Operations Command and through the chain of command well before 2014. Is the Minister confident that Major General Brereton, in his new role as the head of the National Anti-Corruption Commission, can sit on corruption matters involving defence and senior ADF officers free of any apprehended bias and apparent conflict of interest?
Thank you, Senator Lambie. Senator Watt.
Thank you, President, and thank you, Senator Lambie. I guess the short answer is that the government is confident in its appointment of Major General Brereton to this important role as the head of the new National Corruption Commission, a body that is sorely needed in this country and has been sorely needed for many years, despite the intransigence of the coalition in refusing to actually establish it. But I think all of us have been very concerned about the allegations that have come to light recently, partly in response to some recent defamation actions, but more generally as a result of the investigations from the Office of the Special Investigator. Senator Lambie, as I think you're aware, the Office of the Special Investigator is continuing to work with the Australian Federal Police to investigate those allegations of war crimes by members of the Australian Defence Force in Afghanistan from 2005 to 2016. And they are extremely serious allegations that deserve to be properly, independently and fairly investigated. The OSI is one element of the broader response to the Inspector General of the Australian Defence Force's Afghanistan Inquiry Report, or the Brereton Report. I don't propose to comment on investigations or inquiries that have been undertaken by the OFP, the OSI or the Inspector General of the Australian Defence Force. But these are very serious matters that deserve proper investigation. But I, the Attorney-General and the government has confidence in Major General Brereton to head up this organisation. We hope that he has the full support of the Australian community in rooting out any form of corruption that exists within the Australian government. There have obviously been a range of allegations that have come to light in that respect over the last few months as well, and they deserve to be properly investigated.
Thank you, Senator Watt. Senator Lambie, first supplementary.
Thank you. A government appointment oversight panel described Major General Brereton's exoneration of senior commanders as blanket exemptions from command responsibility. International criminal lawyers and legal academics have consistently rebutted these blanket exemptions. Will the minister provide a guarantee that Major General Brereton will excuse himself from hearing corruption matters involving senior defence officials and senior ADF officers to avoid any suggestion of apprehended bias or a conflict of interest?
Thank you, Senator Lambie. Minister Watt.
Thank you, President, and thank you, Senator Lambie. Well, again, I have confidence in Major General Brereton as a distinguished figure, not just within the military, but a very experienced lawyer as well, that he will follow all obligations that he has in terms of conflicts of interest, as would any member of the National Corruption Commission once it gets up and running. I'm not particularly familiar with the report that you're talking about being the representing minister, but as I say, I have full confidence that Major General Brereton will do the right thing in considering any possible conflict of interest that he would have. As I say, we take the role of the new National Corruption Commission extremely seriously. It's been long overdue. It should have been up and running years ago. The former government committed to introduce one and never got around to it. And Senator Cash, of course, was the Attorney-General for much of that period and failed to progress that. I'm very pleased that we will have a corruption commission.
Thank you, Minister. The time for answering has expired. Senator Lambie, second supplementary.
Madam President, having heard clear evidence of conflicts of interest involving the ADF senior leadership, including as recently as last estimates hearings where we learnt the CDF marked his own homework, how can the minister be confident that such exemptions won't be applied by Major General Brereton to defence officials and senior ADF officers or his mates appearing before the National Anti-Corruption Commission?
Thank you, Senator Lambie. Minister Watt.
Thank you, President, and thank you again, Senator Lambie. In terms of the issue relating to medals that you've raised, Senator Lambie, and I know this is something you're very interested in and you've pursued in estimates as well, as I'm sure you're aware, the Chief of the Defence Force has provided his recommendations on command accountability to the Deputy Prime Minister. The Deputy Prime Minister, in his capacity as Minister for Defence, is considering those recommendations and seeking advice as appropriate. But to the broader issue about potential conflicts of interest involving Major General and Justice Brereton, Justice Brereton will resign his judicial appointment and his appointment as Assistant Inspector General of the Australian Defence Force before taking up his role as the Commissioner of the NAC. He will retain his commission as Major General in the ADF Reserves and honorary appointments as Colonel Commandant of the Royal New South Wales Regiment and the University of New South Wales Regiment. Justice Brereton will actively manage any perceived or actual conflict of interest that arises in the course of his duties from his prior roles, for example, by delegating the relevant matter to a Deputy Commissioner.
Senator Stewart.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Early Childhood Education, Senator Watt. We know Australian families are feeling the pinch of cost of living pressures. Anyone with children in childcare knows how expensive this is. The cost of early childhood education is one of the first things families have to factor in when they sit down at the kitchen table to do the household budget. How is the Albanese Labor government dealing with the cost of living pressures by making early childhood education care more affordable?
Thank you, Senator Stewart. Minister Watt.
Thank you, President, and thank you, Senator Stewart. I'm not surprised that you would be asking a question relating to these issues, given they have a very personal touch on your family, and I know we've all come to love baby Ari on his regular appearances to Parliament. Since taking office 12 months ago, the Albanese Labor government has been working hard to support Australian families with cost of living pressures. And that's why we're investing $4.5 billion over 4 years to make early childhood education and care more affordable for more families. From the 1st of July this year, for families earning $80,000 a year or less, we're increasing the childcare subsidy rates to 90%. More broadly, we're increasing subsidy rates for around 96% of families, being those earning less than $530,000 each year with a child in care. These changes will make early childhood education and care more affordable for around 1.2 million families across Australia. And this includes over 250,000 families in rural and regional Australia. So we look forward to the support of the National Party, the self-proclaimed representatives of rural and regional Australia, when we see this support roll out into those regions. These changes will mean real cost of living relief in household budgets. For example, a family earning $120,000 a year with one child in early learning and care will save as much as $1,700 each year. So the Albanese government is a strong supporter of supporting families obtain the childcare that they need and want, and assisting them with the cost of living pressures they're experiencing. That, of course, is in contrast with the Coalition's record when it comes to childcare and early childhood education. I think all of us remember the contribution from Senator Rennick when he gave his views on childcare, when he infamously said that Dorothy didn't tap her shoes together and say there's no place like childcare. She said there's no place like home. That's the kind of people we've got running policy in the Coalition, and that's why they're still yelling on the backbenches.
Answering has expired. Senator Stewart, first supplementary.
Thank you, President. Affordable early childhood education and care will soon become a reality for around 1.2 million Australian families. Yeah. Why is the Albanese Labor government making these changes in the early childhood education and care system, and when do they commence?
Good question. Minister Watt.
Thank you, Senator Stewart. Well, Senator Stewart, I'm pleased to tell you that our changes will commence on the 1st of July, which of course is just a few weeks from now. And they, as I say, they will increase the maximum rate of the childcare subsidy to 90% for families earning $80,000 a year or less. As I say, we've also extended the childcare subsidy to families earning up to $530,000. And we're doing this because this is an economic measure, not a welfare measure. Reducing the cost of early learning, which went up by over 40% under the previous Coalition government, will help to lift participation, particularly by women. No government has done more to put women at the centre of our economic strategy than the Albanese government, and cheaper childcare is a key part of that strategy. Women are the vast majority of primary carers of young children. When the cost of early childhood education and care is too high, it's often their careers that are put on hold. Making early childhood education and care more affordable for families will enable thousands of skilled workers to return to the workforce.
Senator Stewart, second supplementary.
Thank you, President. We know that access to quality, affordable, early education and care is great for kids, it's great for parents and it's great for our economy. How will children, families and the economy benefit from the government's reforms?
Thank you, Senator Stewart. Minister Watt.
Thank you, President. Thanks, Senator Stewart. Well, I'm pleased to say that access to quality early childhood education and care is an investment with a triple dividend. More affordable early childhood education and care gives families the opportunity to participate in the workforce. This could be primary carers, usually women, having the opportunity to take up employment, or giving them opportunity to increase the number of days they work each week. Children having greater access to quality early childhood education and care gives them learning and development opportunities. These opportunities are critical to help to equip them for life and learning, giving them solid foundations to build on when they start school. Investing in early childhood education and care is also an investment in the economy. Supporting families to work and children to learn has immediate and long-term implications for our prosperity and productivity as a nation. I think we were all concerned when we read the reports in the last term of Parliament to see that an unnamed Coalition MP had described working women as outsourcing parenting. That is not the view of the Albanese government. We support parents' right to work if that's what they want to do, and we'll back them with financial support.
The time for answering has expired. Senator Mackenzie.
Thank you, Madam President. My question is to the Minister for Finance, Senator Gallagher. Minister, in text messages that have been released, Mr Shiraz states, and I quote, "Katie is going to come to me with some questions you need to prepare for. She's really invested now, ha ha." Minister, did you provide any questions to Mr Shiraz or Ms Higgins?
Minister Gallagher.
Paragons of integrity.
Order.
Thank you. Well, I haven't seen those text messages. I've only seen what's been reported in the papers and on the TVs, and I would again say, well
Order.
Hang on a sec. Hold on to your hats. And I would say, in relation to that is the most egregious abuse of privacy I think I have ever seen. That the stakes are to the point where people will publish that and then run with those, knowing
Minister,
that a young woman
Minister, please
of
resume
this
your
country.
seat. Thank you. Order. Order. Senator Cash.
Thank you, President. In relation to a point of order, and in prefacing my point of order, I'll quote the Leader of the Government, who on the 21st of February 2021 said
Senator
this.
Cash, you won't. You'll get to your point of order.
This minister is accountable to the Australian people through this chamber. We are not asking her to divulge private conversations.
What is your point
we
of
are
order?
asking. The minister is accountable to the chamber, and she is refusing to provide.
Thank you. Senator Cash, please resume your seat. Order. Order. Again. Minister Wong.
Thank you. On the point of order, I would suggest to you, President, and to the chamber that the use of private text messages obtained without consent in this chamber is a matter. It is a reasonable matter for a minister to respond on when those are put to him or her. And I would again encourage all of us to reflect on the context of these current discussions and the effect on the individual concerned.
Thank you, Minister Wong. Order. Order. Order on my left. Order. Order across the chamber. Order. Order. Senator Hume. Senator Watt. Order. Order. Senator Ayres and McGrath. I should not have to remind senators to listen and respect the answers. You don't have to agree with them, but it's not okay to banter across the chamber. In response to your point of order, Senator Cash, which wasn't about relevance, I will take it on notice. Minister, please continue.
Thank you. And after making those points about the egregious breach of privacy that is continuing to occur against a young woman in this country, I would refer you to my statement. And that's what I'm going to continue to do, because because I had confidential information given to me. That information, at their request, was to remain confidential, and
order.
Well, it remained confidential until Ms Higgins decided to make that information public. That is how it happens. I know it upsets you greatly, but that is how it happens.
Please resume your seat. Minister, please resume your seat. Order. Minister, I've asked you to resume your seat. The interjections are disorderly and they're disruptive. Minister, please continue.
I think I've finished.
Senator Cash, first supplementary.
That'd be Senator McKenzie.
Sorry, Senator McKenzie. Senator McKenzie, first supplementary.
Thank you. Minister, at any point prior to the 15th of February 2021, did you communicate with any other person about potential questions to ask the then government regarding Ms Higgins' allegations?
Thank you, Senator McKenzie. Minister Gallagher.
I refer you to my statement.
Order.
I refer you to my statement. That is the information that last week I was being accused of misleading the Senate and having a inappropriate role in a compensation payout. I have dealt with those in my statement today. I have also made it clear that the well-being of Ms Brittany Higgins matters to me. It matters to me. And so, subjecting her, because this is what happens, to further commentary in a very distressing time for her, as Minister for Women, I don't think is acceptable. I don't think it is, and I think for all the young women waiting out there, wondering about whether they should stand up and say something, and all the older women, when it's happening to them, whether they should stand up and say something.
Thank you, Minister. The time
and they
for
get treated like
has
this.
Expired. Senator McKenzie, first supplementary.
Second supplementary.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Minister, in June 2021 you told a Senate committee that, and I quote, no one had any knowledge, yet you had personally exchanged messages about the allegations. You publicly said, I quote, I wasn't aware of the full allegations, but it's been made public that you received content of Ms Higgins' interview. You also publicly said you did nothing with the information, yet there are claims that you sent questions to Ms Higgins. Isn't it the case that you have misled the Australian public and the Australian Senate?
The time for asking the question has expired, Minister.
The answer to that is no.
Senator Sheldon.
And as to the Minister for the Emergency Management Minister, Senator Watt. Minister, in the face of more frequent and intense natural disasters across Australia, how is the Albanese government helping communities become more resilient?
Minister Watt.
Thanks, President, and thanks, Senator Sheldon, including for your terrific work as Special Envoy for Disaster Recovery. As you know, Senator Sheldon, since our election 12 months ago, the Albanese government has worked hard to ensure that Australia is better prepared for future natural disasters. The years of I don't hold a hose, it's not my responsibility, they ended on the 21st of May last year when we had a government elected that was prepared to take responsibility and ensure that Australia is better prepared for what lies ahead. Because we know that by investing in projects that prevent the impact of natural disasters, we can keep communities safer. Every dollar spent on resilience and mitigation saves on recovery. In fact, every dollar spent on resilience and mitigation delivers a return on investment to governments and households 9 times over. So that's why last week I announced the first round of the Albanese government's new Disaster Ready Fund. This is the biggest ever long-term investment from federal, state and territory governments working together in boosting Australia's preparedness for natural disasters. With co-contributions from states, territories and councils, that investment will reach up to $2 billion over the next 5 years in disaster mitigation. Through that, we're investing in hard infrastructure like seawalls, drainage improvements, cyclone shelters, flood levees and runways. We're improving telecommunications and digital connectivity, subsidising home retrofitting and funding research to better understand community risk. A large number of these projects will address issues that communities have wanted fixed for years but were just not dealt with by the former coalition government. For example, the Upper Brown Hill Creek in South Australia has been identified as an area of concern for over a decade, and I know that flood mitigation projects in areas including Campaspe Shire, Doomadgee in northwest Queensland and Cabon in western New South Wales will also be welcomed by these communities still recovering from last year's devastating floods. While we can't change what they've already experienced, we can help to reduce their risk into the future, and that's exactly what the Disaster Ready Fund is doing.
Has expired. Senator Sheldon, first supplementary.
But thanks, thank you very much, Minister. And the Disaster Ready Fund is obviously up and going. So we know that building resilience and preparedness in disaster-prone communities is critical to reducing disaster risk. What has been the response to the Albanese government's commitment to build a more resilient Australia?
Minister.
Thank you, President. Well, after a decade of reckless inaction and a decade of not holding hoses by the former government, the Albanese government's Disaster Ready Fund has been welcomed with open arms by communities, councils and businesses. I know it really hurts when you're reminded of your record, but it was there for everyone to see, and fortunately the world has noticed that things have changed, including the Australian Local Government Association President, Councillor Linda Scott, who said about the Disaster Ready Fund—
Minister Watt, please resume your seat. Order on my left. Order. Minister Watt, please continue.
Thank you. I know taking responsibility is a foreign concept for the opposition, but we've finally got a government who will do it. The Australian Local Government Association President, Councillor Linda Scott, said about the Disaster Ready Fund, "We strongly advocated to the government for this funding in the lead-up to last year's election, and we were thrilled when it was announced and later enshrined in legislation." RACQ Chief Executive Officer David Carter said that RACQ has long advocated for greater investments in household mitigation, and it's great to see the federal government recognise the importance of these resilience programs. These programs such as these can help keep insurance affordable and accessible as it reduces risk.
Senator Sheldon, second supplementary.
Exactly to your point, Minister. Under the former Morrison government, the Emergency Response Fund failed to build a single disaster mitigation project in 3 years, while earning them over $800 million in interest. Minister, how is the Albanese government's Disaster Ready Fund operating differently to the former government's Emergency Response Fund?
Minister.
Thank you, President. Thank you, Senator Sheldon. I know Senator McKenzie would be particularly touchy about this because, of course, she was the Emergency Management Minister who did not build a single mitigation project using that Emergency Response Fund. Who can forget that fund, which came to light after those terrible floods in Lismore last year? The former government's failed Emergency Response Fund, nearly $5 billion in funding, did not build a single mitigation project in 3 years, and in fact all it did over that time was earn the former government over $800 million in interest. Rather than keeping Australians safe, the coalition put the money in a safe and earned interest in it rather than helping Australians. It was another example of a government that loved an announcement but was terrible in delivery. So in contrast to that, the Albanese government in just our first year has committed up to $1 billion over 5 years.
Order. Minister, please continue.
And said colour-coded spreadsheets, so I don't know why Senator McKenzie is so vocal at the moment. In October last year, we committed up to $1 billion over 5 years to the Disaster Ready Fund in our first budget. In November, we enshrined the Disaster Ready Fund in legislation.
The time for answering has expired. Minister Wong.
Thank you, President. I ask that further questions be placed on notice.